Are you someone who is currently experiencing ascension symptoms as you ascend to your 5D self? Or are you someone who is expressing a very valid emotional experience only to have your weird spiritual friends say, bro, that's way too 3D. You need to go to your 5D self. And you think to yourself, what the fuck is he talking about? What your weird spiritual bypassing friend is actually referring to is different dimensions of consciousness. So what are dimensions of consciousness? They refer to different levels of awareness. Essentially, we inhabit a multi-dimensional reality. There are many things going on beyond what we can perceive with our 5 senses, all right? And these different dimensions interact with each other. And we can bring in different dimensional awareness into this plane of reality. So, dimensions are basically means of organizing different planes of existence or reality relative to the vibratory rate. You see, these dimensions aren't above us or below us, right? They're all around us, but they all happen at a different energetic vibration, okay? So the 4th, 5th, 6th dimension basically are vibrating much more quickly or faster than the 3rd dimension, so we can't necessarily perceive it, right? This 3rd dimensional reality is essentially very dense. So consciousness, when we refer to consciousness, what we're talking about is awareness, okay? Being very aware, understanding what's going on, functioning clearly and easily, all right? So when we refer to multidimensional consciousness, we mean having an awareness of what is going on beyond one-dimensional plane, okay? And so these different dimensional planes have different qualities, characteristics, or laws. So someone with a multidimensional consciousness is aware of these other planes and can interact and operate within these other planes while being in this physical reality. So let's go over what these different levels of consciousness are. Because it is my belief that we go through this physical existence, right, to attain different levels of consciousness. No. It's surprising. It's not to buy a Maserati or Lamborghini, though that's a very nice accomplishment, right? It's basically to go in and attain these higher levels of awareness and being. So, 3rd to 4th dimensional consciousness, all right? So the first one we're going to cover is the 3rd to lower 4th dimension, all right? Our 3rd dimension is what we inhabit. It's our physical earth. And the consciousness level of the 3rd dimension is relative to what we need to do to get by here, all right? Also, there's the lower 4th dimension. We're going to go into that a little bit more, but what we're referring to is the lower elements of the astral plane. Now, according to PhD David Hawkins, over 80% of people actually have a consciousness that operates at this level. He also said that in America, it's 50%, all right? So, in this level of consciousness, right, very much the characteristics that embody are one of duality. And when we refer to duality, we mean black and white thinking, us versus them, you know, me versus you, right? There's no gray area, no gray spectrum, okay? There's also this belief of cause and effect. I do this and this happens, right? You're not really in control of your life, it just happens. It's basically when you are in this level of consciousness, you are in the ego. You're in the egoic self. Everything is about self-preservation, everything is about survival, everything is about the I, everything is about meeting your material base needs, okay? So there are certain emotions associated with each level of consciousness. Within this one, we're looking at shame, guilt, fear, apathy, right? And then we also have pride, pleasure, desire. This level of consciousness is all about predation. Right? It's all about gain. It's basically, like I said, satisfying your base needs. It is okay to have these qualities. In fact, we have to embrace these qualities. But the goal is to shift in and out, to not just purely be in a state where you're only focused on the I, where you don't care about anyone else about yourself, but purely for your own survival and meeting your own needs. So, as we work to ascend to the next level of consciousness, we're talking about the mid to higher 4th dimensional plane. When we talk about shamans and where they go in their transcendental states, or when we take psychedelics, it's often into this plane. This is often referred to as the dream world. So when someone is lucid dreaming or astral projecting, right? Or just being asleep, right? Sometimes we spend time inhabiting this plane of reality. So In the mid to fourth dimensional plane, time is much more fluid, right? You can start to notice if your consciousness is experiencing the mid to high fourth dimension, if you're going through deja vu, or if you have a dream about something and then that thing happens the very next day. As you start to work here, you start to gain some more awareness of the reality beyond just yourself, beyond I. You start experiencing things beyond just separation. You start experiencing group and unity consciousness, right? So when you care about your family or you care about your community, you are experiencing a consciousness that is in the higher fourth dimension, all right? Thoughts and feelings also create our reality more quickly when we approach this level of consciousness, all right? We can affect our reality more when we're operating within this level of awareness. So what are some emotions associated with this? Well, this is stepping out of the egoic self, okay? This is having courage. This is being neutral, not just being emotionally charged on us versus them, but being able to take just a neutral, impartial stance on something. It's having willingness. It's being accepting of someone, right? It's using reason, okay? Logical thinking, logical awareness, critical thinking, right? These are all qualities of a higher level of awareness, a higher level of consciousness, okay? Whenever you're creative, whenever you're very passionate about something, okay? You are basically accessing this different level of awareness. We have multiple selves that exist on different planes of reality. And basically you are experiencing this self that exists on the fourth dimension. As we go higher, right, we're gonna talk about our fifth to sixth dimension selves. Now, according to Stephen Hawking, there's 11 different dimensions. It's my personal belief that there's 12, but ultimately, really within our own reality, these are the ones that we have to be most concerned with, of interacting with, because anything beyond this is way more than we really understand or can categorize, okay? So our fifth dimensional awareness, right? Fifth dimension is what likely our spiritual leaders, right, these human avatars, were referring to as heaven when they were describing it, okay? In this place, it transcends linear time, right? There is nothing but the eternal now. There is no past, there is no future, there is merely just this present moment, all right? It's very hard for us to understand within linear thinking, okay? There's also this experience of oneness, all right? Which is just basically everything is connected. You start to understand that everything works together, right? You still have a concept of self, you still have a concept of I, but you know that you're just a part of this huge moving whole, right? And that everything affects another part. All right, in the fifth dimension, it's kind of nice. You don't need to experience pain and suffering for growth, okay? It just happens naturally. Essentially, when you're in the fifth dimension, this is a new way of thinking, seeing, doing, right? When you are having a fifth dimensional awareness, there is purely just this inner knowing, okay? You just know things. It's like claircognizance. And so the qualities, the emotions that make up this fifth dimensional awareness is unconditional love, unconditional forgiveness, unconditional acceptance, joy, ecstasy, right? We're not judging other people, right? You are in a fifth dimensional consciousness when you're not judging your lower aspects, when you're not feeling shameful for yourself, when you are just saying, you know what, I accept myself as I am. I take responsibility, but I understand why I did those things, right? This is fifth dimension. It looks crazy in the third dimension, okay? When someone is operating from a fifth dimensional consciousness consistently in the third dimension, they might look mentally insane. Unconditional love, right, doesn't look normal in the third dimension. When we talk about unconditional love, we mean that you love this person no matter what. You need nothing from them. There is nothing, they just are perfect. They are lovable the way they are, all right? We experience this level of consciousness mostly with our children, but someone who is feeling this way about everyone, right, they would look like different. That's why people thought Jesus was a little crazy. He was operating from a very high level of consciousness. And since that's a great segue, talking about Jesus, we're going to go to the next level, which is the sixth dimensional awareness and higher. So when we talk about the sixth dimension, we are talking about sacred geometry. If you've ever been on psychedelics, right, and you've seen these weird geometrical patterns, right, this is likely that you are experiencing what the sixth dimension is. This is also what houses morphogenic fields, all right? These are these energetic fields that really create our third dimensional reality and the characteristics of our third dimensional reality and our third dimensional selves. It also houses the Akashic records, which is just this all-encompassing field that has recorded every thought, feeling, emotion that anyone and everyone has ever experienced, okay? Sixth dimension is where our higher selves, our monadic selves exist, okay? And so, sorry guys. So yeah, so when you are experiencing a sixth dimensional awareness, the concept of I, the concept of self ceases to exist. When you bring in a sixth dimensional consciousness, what actually happens is the soul is no more. You are now embodying the higher self. The monadic self comes into the physical vehicle, and you are no longer an individual, right? You are experiencing the whole in an individual suit, okay? This looks like the people, like as if God was to incarnate into someone, or a higher power was to incarnate into someone. This is a level of consciousness that our greatest spiritual teachers over thousands of years have ascended to. So we're talking about Buddha, we're talking about Zoroaster, we're talking about Jesus, we're talking about Mary Magdalene, we're talking about Kuan Yin. This is the level of awareness that these people were embodying, right, within their third dimension. It is rare, okay? And so what are qualities? Like, what could be more than unconditional love? It's pure peace. It's bliss, right? It's illumination, okay? It's enlightenment, right? The universe is experiencing itself through you. You and the universe are one in of itself, all right? So, now that we explained the different levels of consciousness, let's talk about how we expand our consciousness, all right? So, how do we up our level of awareness? How do we begin to access these different higher levels of self and bring them into our third dimension? Well, there's triangulation, and no, we're not referring to what jackasses do between two different people. Triangulation is actually spending time with other people who are at a higher level of consciousness. We take on the energy, we take on the vibration of the people we are around. So if you want to expand your consciousness, you essentially have to spend time with higher vibratory people, okay? So your friends that drink and smoke and don't care to grow or learn or do anything ever, you might have to spend less time with them. Meditation is big. We ascend and we accelerate in our growth and take in different levels of consciousness when we are able to step into the role of the observer, right? When we become the witness to the self, not identifying with the self, but just observing the self, okay? You're basically discerning, you're accepting, and then you come back and remain neutral instead of having this overly charged reaction of, oh yeah, I had this thought, and no. Step back, observe, witness, don't react, right? Those lower emotions or lower embodiments will then just release themselves, right? We still have to experience it and release it, but then we come back to neutral, and this helps raise our vibratory rate. It's also trusting our intuition, right? It's embracing nonlinear thinking. It's from meditation, you begin to discern what is survival, right, responses, this heightened survival response, and what's actually your intuition. What is this inner knowing that you have to work off of? As we learn to trust our inner knowing, as we learn to make actions off this inner knowing, and it's confirmed to us that it was the right move, we begin to embrace a non-linear awareness, a non-linear capacity, okay, right? We're stepping outside of what's normal and just embracing this inner knowing. There's also energy healing, which is basically you have to remove these energetic blockages. If you feel stuck, if you feel like there's something not moving through, right? We ascend in consciousness when we allow flow, when we allow fluidity. So when we need this energy, this energy in our bodies just move through. So energy healing can be a great way to kind of create greater fluidity, create greater flow, create greater movement within oneself, right? Allow these experiences just flow through you, and this allows us to ascend in consciousness as well. Also, loving unconditionally, just accepting people as they are, not judging them, right? Not being critical of them, understanding they're on their path, understanding everyone's unique, which you don't understand, What many people don't understand is that everyone is just on this different path. Everyone is here to experience, learn, and grow in their own way. That homeless man on the street could be a very old, wise soul who is just here to experience what it is to be homeless. Okay? So not judging, nothing is your job to come in and save them as well, just accepting, right? And loving them for as they are. These are ways to expand in consciousness. All right, so this covered this topic of different levels of consciousness. I hope I was able to explain this in a fashion that was digestible. Please make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel and leave any comments below of questions you may have. Thank you.